What if I told you that this sword, the weapon of the Lich King, started as just a roll of filament? What's up everyone, welcome back. As you can see behind me, I've got my Lich King helmet, my Iron Man helmet, and now my newly completed Sword of the Lich King, Frostmourne. Now, my collection is growing, and today I want to show you exactly what I did to make this weapon. Today I'm going to take you through the entire process of building this weapon, from printing all the pieces, to putting them together, to PLA welding, to sanding, to all the painting and finishing. I'm going to take you through the whole process, and trust me, there were definitely some issues along the way. Alright, so the printing process will take about 70 hours, and it's going to print about 10 pieces that I'll have to put together. Now, I didn't love the handle, so I did end up remaking that. I cut off the part of the STL file where it would connect, and then I made my own handle to attach to that to make it comfortable and I think make it look a little bit cooler. I found the file for this sword on Thingiverse. It was made by somebody named Clausen, and it's a decent file. There were a couple pieces that didn't fit together quite right, so I ended up just cutting off the supports for them, super gluing them together, and PLA welding to make it work. So if I were to go back, I would actually probably choose a different file because this one is fairly low poly. Looking at some other files after I'd already printed and done all the work, I'm realizing that I really could have had a way better file, but that's all right. A mistake was made, and I do really like how this sword came out, so I'm happy with it anyway. Maybe someday in the future I'll revisit this and remake one that looks a little bit nicer. And here comes the part that either makes or breaks the project. As you can see, I'm putting things together. I had to do some sanding because some of these parts are just a little too tight. And once they were all sanded and done, I put them all together. Some of them were so tight that I did actually have to pound them together. Obviously, I wasn't using too much force, but I did have to coerce them to get into the position I needed them to be in. Now it's time for PLA welding. PLA welding is the very best way that you can make two 3D printed parts get stuck together. You can use super glue or other different chemicals, but oftentimes they're just not as strong as PLA welding. PLA welding melts the plastic and really fuses it together so that it's super duper well stuck together. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm basically just running the hot soldering iron back and forth across this to melt the pieces and basically fuse them together. These joints actually become just as strong as the original print. Alright, real talk here. This is the part of the project where most people's project actually falls apart, and that's the sanding process. The reason is they don't want to put in the time it takes to really make something go from a piece of plastic to something that looks really cool. I spent about 4 hours sanding this sword, and I really wish I would have spent about 2 hours more than that once I did start putting the coats of paint on and I started seeing those imperfections that I didn't quite hit. And now it's time for the first coat of primer. And this was a really fun coat to really see it turn from gray, scuffed up plastic to really start to have a full color on it. And it really felt good getting to this point. Once I had the primer on, I really started to see some imperfections that I wish I would have spent a little bit more time sanding. So what I did is after I did the first coat of filler and sandable primer, I went ahead and sanded the whole thing down again really nice and then did a second coat of that primer. I really probably should have done a third or maybe even a fourth coat with sanding between, but I'm happy with how things turned out. Color choice was huge for this project. Frostmourne isn't just a full silver weapon. There's different colors, there's black down the middle, there's the blue runes, which I haven't completed yet because I wanted to wait for everything to fully dry. I did use an oil-based paint, so it takes a lot longer to dry when I came back through for finishing touches. So I'm just waiting for that to dry and then I'll add that. But I had to do the handle, I had to tape everything off, all the horns and everything to make sure that I could get the right colors on there and make it look the way I want it to. I didn't just want to do whatever I thought I should do. I really wanted to have a good reference picture to work off of, and this is the reference picture that I chose. Now, I think this makes sense because it really has a good view and the colors don't seem too impossible to make happen. Now, I know my sword turned out a little bit shinier. My sword looks like it maybe hasn't been through battle yet, unlike the sword in the game, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I think it does look pretty similar to how that reference picture looked. Now this is where patience paid off in this taping process. This took quite a lot of time to do all the taping to really make sure that everything was covered, but once all the taping was done, the hard part was done. It was really just time to put on that coat of paint and make it look good. So this just happened. I took the tape off and a lot of paint came with it. This is a bummer, but it's all my fault. It means that I didn't let the paint dry long enough before I put the tape over top of it. And I knew I was pushing it with how early I did it, but I really thought I was all right. And this mistake does set me back a little bit, but what I'll do is I'll sand down just a little bit the areas that it made look rough, and then I will repaint it with a small brush, really just a fine detail brush, to kind of bring that back to life. And this is exactly why I film everything. I can show you the ups and the downs. Not everything is smooth sailing. There's mistakes along the way, but when we overcome those mistakes, we can really bring things to life and have a backstory to go with them. And this is the final part of the project, is just that fine detail painting, where I spend a lot of time just making sure that everything looks exactly how I want it. Because after this, it's going to be pretty difficult to come back and change this. Now, before I show you the completed Frostmourne, I want to put things in perspective. This started out as just a roll of filament. Then it got printed, it got slammed together, it got welded together, it got sanded, painted again, taped off, painted again, and then a little bit of love after the fact. And that brings us to what we have today, which is Frostmourne. Now, I'm pretty happy with how the sword came out. It feels great in your hand. It's very sturdy. I'm not worried at all about it breaking when I'm swinging it around with the handle or anything like that. Like, I don't feel like I need two hands on it. I'm very comfortable with how it feels. Well, that concludes my Frostmourne build. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helped out the channel. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.